So good afternoon, everyone. I'll keep the session fairly interactive. There is a small element of accidental entrepreneurship story that I would just want to mention in the beginning. But the session itself would be about what do libraries mean in the current context and what can they be going forward. I would want to just share it, I would want to discuss it by sharing our experience in this whole story and then extend it forward what to do. The whole library space, if I look at it from my perspective, it's a very layered opportunity. So it's not very visible at the outside on what this could mean as a space. But as we work on it and start, peeling layers after layers, I think this is an extremely interesting but somewhat complex opportunity to define. I did a library out of interest, and I don't think I was the only guy who did a library in the neighborhood out of interest. We've had a tradition of people running libraries in and around the place where they live for years together. As kids, we would have been members of some library in the neighborhood run by some interested book reader. That's a tradition that we've carried for long. When I did the library, what surprised me was the whole response to the library in this age. We did some experiments, created an extremely vibrant ambience, put a good set of collection of about 10,000 books, did it at a slightly larger scale than what I have seen as libraries in the neighborhood. But the response of getting about 1,000 members within a few months to the first library got the whole story started. As I mentioned, the exciting thing about libraries is that it's an extremely layered opportunity. You just need to wait and watch and see what the next layer means before taking subsequent decisions. To us, what happened was we did the first library and then we had members signing up and using books as a facility, but we also had people walking in and saying, can I set up a library like this in another neighborhood just 5 kilometers away from where we had set up? And we had to just respond to that by saying we'll be happy to help you set up a library in the neighborhood that you are interested in. And then the second library came up. And then a member of the second library said, can I do it in 3 kilometers from where that library was? And then the third library came up. Our story has largely been just reacting well to some opportunities that people presented, and we've grown. So from that single experimental library in Whitefield in Bangalore, we now have about 60 libraries that spread about 10 cities. And this has happened in about 3 years, and we are extremely happy with the way the network of neighborhood libraries has grown purely as a reactive response-based expansion. So somebody comes and asks us, want to set up a library, we are happy to help them, and it's moved on. That's how the whole footprint for us has grown. With this as the background, I just wanted to highlight the fact that the session is really not about just books and our experience. The session is more about what we understand out of libraries as an opportunity. But I wanted to set the context that there is a extremely layered and interesting opportunity. We still don't know whether we have figured out this animal and what this opportunity really means to all the players within the book space. But there is something here, and we just thought we'd be happy to share that. When we did this experimental library and when we were going through our initial months of experience, I just stepped back and I was keen to understand what does library science mean and what did people intend when they set up those initial set of libraries. And I then bumped into this fantastic philosophy that a library in its original intent was supposed to be a platform that would connect a lot of books and lots of readers. So the founding philosophy of library science, people say there's some 5 broad philosophies behind library, but the first 2 are the ones that really got me excited. It said every book should find a reader and every reader should find a book that he or she wants to read. And that should be the primary intent of what a library should do. In this age of a lot of technology and the way we view everything as platforms and how we could network all the resources and how we could network lots of activities, to me this looked like a classic platform definition statement. Lots of books and lots of readers. Every book should find a reader and every reader should find a book that he or she wants to read. So we picked that up as the broader philosophy behind what a library could be. We continue to believe that that has to be the core intent of what library is. I think great buildings and a lot of infrastructure and a lot of knowledge sharing, everything else is good, but the intent is that build a platform and just ensure that every book finds a reader and every reader finds the book he or she wants to read. The other definitions around the platform is when you start stepping back and looking at libraries as a larger platform, it requires lots of infrastructure to support it. So it requires a lot of technology, it requires a lot of books, it requires a lot of logistics, it requires a certain amount of marketing tools. And you need to let the whole platform develop by engaging with these. So our experience is that look at other industries, see what retail as an industry does. It's setting up a lot of outlets. There is a certain retail trade engagement that people do around that space. Look at what technology industry does. There's a lot of pay-per-use and hosted infrastructure that's coming up in the technology space. Look at how marketing is evolving, and try and see what we can bring from all these industries into books as a space and see whether that helps libraries. So we borrowed liberally from how warehouses are set up in retail industries. We borrowed liberally from how logistics work in shipping a stock from point A to point B with multiple hops. We borrowed liberally from technology in defining how extremely low-cost accounting and subscription packages can be developed for use within the library system. So we think that step back and view libraries as a platform and put lots of pieces together that is required to build the platform in terms of infrastructure, it does become an interesting opportunity. Is this a viable commercial venture? I mean, a lot of people asking this question, and do people make money running libraries? My answer to them would be that it seems like a huge yes to me. It has some caveats, but my understanding of this space is that every neighborhood auntie who set up a library in the place that he or she lived and ran a library for a few months almost invariably made some money by running that library with a few members around. Would that service have sustained for 5 years, and would that growth in money be significant over a period of time? Would it have taken off exponentially? All those may come with those caveats, but I don't think even today if you pick up a place, put up those 1,000, 2,000 books and offer it for people who are interested in signing up those members, you will get the first 100 book lovers who come and sign, write the check, pay you the money and get started. And that money very often, if you get your basics right, is good enough to cover that initial stock that you have put up to get the whole business started. So what you started with and what you saw as a response to that venture almost immediately makes that money that you would want to. The problem starts after that. After 6 months, after 1 year, the member who paid you that initial money is now expecting more. You need more books, you need more space to hold those books, you need means of engagement to carry the member with you for 5 years or so. That is when the complexities come in, and then put a certain drag in the system on, can I carry this member with me for the next 5 years and meet all the reading requirements, or at least a significant part of the reading requirements of this member? That is when the model starts getting a little tricky. So as a commercial venture, we think that libraries are low on ticket size, low on value, but works extremely well if you can get a significant volume on table. So if you have 1,000 members and 2,000 members paying you that small amount of money, which could be 200 rupees, 300 rupees per month, that is still sizable money which lets you run your library as an organization that meets the requirements. We also think that to make it commercially viable, there is a certain neighborhood engagement that is required within libraries that works. You interact with people around and get them to stay with you for about 5 years. That requires a certain community connect, and often we think that comes from the franchise engagement. Our experience has been that we've gone to neighborhoods where people have taken us. We've never really forced the story to step into a place where no one has really asked for setting up a library in places. So we're now present in 10 cities, but a lot of it is members turned franchise owners or franchise owner turned references and friends that's taken us to some places. And they are often people who have an understanding of that neighborhood, and they think that bringing in library as a service into the neighborhood would work. And the community connect through the franchise expansion has often helped us in scaling this further. The place where we don't have an answer today on libraries is that, is it an extremely friendly, marketable service? Can I do an exceptional campaign to drive these memberships from whatever point it is to some 3x or 5x as a multiplier? We don't have that answer yet. Partly because we think the model often is unable to fund a typical marketing spend that would be required to be very loud about what we would want to achieve. But if we work the details out and figure out an attractive low-cost marketing campaign, like there are low-cost technology options available to keep the system going, it could be a marketable service too. I just have 3 more slides. Just gives different perspectives of libraries. It's not libraries as a platform. It's talking about libraries as a commercial venture. I also think library is an extremely important, relevant neighborhood service. By that, what I mean is there is a certain warmth associated with setting up of a library in a neighborhood, and we think it often helps, and it's an extremely important attribute to carry in the system. We have people walking in thanking us for setting up a library in the neighborhood. Even if you go and set up a library in an apartment, you'll have somebody walking in and saying, thank God you guys are coming and setting up a library here. We're extremely happy about it, and we always missed something like that. That gap was not very visible until the first set of guys come to you and say that I'm happy you're here setting up a library in the place that we are. So there is a warmth in that neighborhood. We think that a typical trade engagement has a certain element of aggression both ways in terms of customer expecting something from a service provider and the service provider having to meet the expectations of the customer and look to raise the revenue or the top line from that member. So trade brings a certain element of aggression, whereas this as a neighborhood service seems to bring in an element of warmth. Of course the expectations continue to remain. Of course you have your expectations of wanting to make some money from that service. But there is still an element of warmth in that business which we think is extremely relevant and needs to be carried along. The logistics in that space is extremely interesting for a neighborhood service. We think that a typical library service in today's age seems to fall right in between what people are used to in the e-commerce segment. I order a book and get books delivered home, versus walking to a nearby supermarket and just picking up those important books or important items that I intend to buy. I think people today coexist with these two experiences. They don't mind a visit to a neighborhood outlet. There is a certain fatigue involved in having to order everything online and wait for that delivery to come over. If it's something that's going to get done in 5 minutes and 10 minutes, I don't mind just driving down or walking across and doing that neighborhood transaction at the outlet. But at the same time, if it's not something that's very urgent, or if it's not something that's likely to be done in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I need the convenience to be able to place an order and don't really care where it is getting serviced from, but I'd be happy to get it delivered at my place. So neighborhood service like a library service would fall somewhere in between, where it should be happy to let people come in and do that transaction within a few minutes, but it also needs to go to the doorstep of the customer and also offer those services to them and not just rely on people walking into that library. So it's one of those opportunities that, apart from other complexities, it requires certain logistic support to be able to engage with the residents, even though it's pretty much present within that neighborhood. And in our model, it gets even more interesting if you are able to network these neighborhoods using the next level of logistics. Today, when in the library service that we offer, we tell people that there are 60 libraries in 10 cities. You become a member at one library, you get access to all the books in all the libraries. You could either ask for the book to be brought to you, or you could go and visit any of those libraries. You could pick up a book in Bangalore, and if you are visiting Pune, or if your in-laws, or if your wife, or anybody is visiting, they could drop the book in Pune if they find it just too outlet. Take a replacement book and go back and return it in Bangalore. The logistics that is required for this is making that opportunity a little more interesting. There seems to be a requirement to do this logistics to be able to sustain this experience for a long period. I also think that the connect has to be not at an individual reader level. It works if it connects to an entire family. In all subscription services, there is an element of cyclical behavior that people drop off and people come back, and it keeps happening. If you are connecting to the whole family, there is a possibility that when one member of the family is dropping off or it's in that reverse cycle, there could be other members of the family who have the time or who have the inclination to read. So the engagement overall continues to remain within the family if you are engaging them. So our understanding of that space is, as we added more regional language content into that space, it brought in a certain sets of readers whom otherwise we were not engaging with. And if you have books for kids, if you have books for the business readers of non-fiction, if you have the regular fiction collection, if you have regional languages, then you seem to kind of cover little bit of reading requirements of an entire family, and makes it interesting to just carry the whole experience for a longer period of time. So this is a point that I feel is completely underutilized as we speak today. I am now a huge believer that libraries matter a lot to publishers. Libraries collect a certain reader base. It filters out, a lot of non-reading buyers that every publisher is trying to reach out to through retailers. And this gives you a filtered access to reader base. And there has to be a way publishers engage with readers through the libraries and get them interested in it and see what percentage of them convert into buying those books and owning copies of them. The act of subscribing to libraries does not necessarily completely replace a buying experience. I think it just coexists. People do read different types of books when they access a library. They get a lot more adventurous and do some experiments. If they have to buy, they would be a lot more choosy. They would want to, really be sure that it's something, it's a transaction that they would want to do. And publishers, I think, can tap into this and figure out how do I do teasers, do promotions, do something with the reader base to assess the interest levels through libraries, and then see what percentage converts and becomes potential buyers of the book. We also think neighborhood libraries give a certain insight into how the title is getting accepted in different neighborhoods. We think that it could be in specific genres, or it could be in different languages. But there is an element of insight that people can get in how is a book doing in Mangalore, how is a book doing in Mysore. That would be a different insight as compared to how is Karnataka doing as a whole, or how is South doing as a whole. This can go down to Mangalore and specific neighborhoods in Mangalore and say that this is a reader-heavy neighborhood. And all subsequent planning that publishers typically do, taking an author to a place, doing some events, generating certain buzz, it can get a lot more focused if you get a certain neighborhood connect into this. The readers, once they really connect with the book and connect with the writer, the logical next step for them is to, I think they don't mind meeting the writer and having a chat about what goes in the writer's mind and how do they plan their writing, things like that. So these connects, book author events do help, but they need to be positioned with a certain element of insight rather than a pure promotional, placed in the background kind of an activity. We think libraries can be an extremely useful engagement tool for publishers to test waters about what they are coming up with their content. I can't claim to have set up the entire infrastructure that is required for a publisher to engage with the reader base, but we think that building block is get readers in on our subscription models, carry them with you for a longer period of time, doing some transactions, and then see how can the producers of the content engage with the reader base and make the whole experience more interesting than what it is. We also think there is an opportunity for libraries to be publishers. I feel that libraries can show the way to publishers on how to co-create or create content working with readers. Lots of people right from morning have been talking about how the new way of publishing or the new generation of publishing can be very different from what it has been in the past. I strongly believe that there is an opportunity for we do some experiments ourselves. So we have a magazine, we call it Books and More. We carry a lot of information about what happens in the book space and then use that as a vehicle to engage with our members. We carry newsletters that talk largely about activities within our libraries and create vehicles to engage with this. Our larger intent is to try and see if libraries, apart from waiting for content to come from outside and just offer it to its readers, if it can show a way of creating engaging content, it becomes a way for publishers to structure what they would want to do with their content to engage the same set of readers. The biggest asset that a library typically acquires over a period of time, in my view, is not the books on the shelves that it has collected over a period of time, but it's the members and the readers that it has access to and its ability to carry them for a longer period of time. Very often we tend to assess libraries in terms of how many shelves, how many books does it carry, what is the kind of collection, how rare the books are that the library is holding. But the real assessment also can be that how many readers does it engage with and how many of them is the library able to carry over a longer period of time. I think as an experience, the library experience has a very interesting space and it can coexist very comfortably with the retail experience on book trade. it's a gap that is not very visible from the outside, but as you peel through the layers and keep looking at all associated opportunities, it's an extremely interesting space that has something for all the players. It can be the publisher, it can be the independent business owner who's running a library, it can be the reader who gets some value out of it. It can be any other service provider who's engaged in this whole experience. So what we do today, the last piece of information I wanted to leave the audience with was that from a single library handling a couple of thousand members in one place, it is possible to build a whole library platform that is spanning across cities. It has lots of books, lots of members, lots of languages, and it has the ability to corporates tell us that why don't we set up a small corner within the library that we have. The apartments tell us that we have a clubhouse and we have space, why don't we set up a small library there. And lots of them are independent libraries that were running in a very siloed way with a handful of books, collections pooled in by different people. We think that larger opportunity is to streamline and get a larger infrastructure in place. And the library infrastructure, our definition of that is a larger platform in an abstract sense that connects books and readers. It's not about large buildings and lot of space and extremely attractive prime locations within the city. We think that a library can be a 1,000 square feet outlet within the neighborhood. It can be a 500 square feet outlet within an apartment. It can be a whole chain of these outlets spread all over the place, becoming an important part of the neighborhood library. As long as we create a logistics infrastructure that connects all these distributed pockets of libraries all around, the whole thing becomes extremely attractive. We do think the larger infrastructure, government-funded libraries have their place. We need libraries that go beyond just distributing books to members. You need librarians who engage at an extremely deep level in consolidating knowledge, collecting content and all that. But that as an experience can coexist with extremely simplified neighborhood access for books that we enable across all our places. So I would want to complete my part of the discussion here, and I would be happy to take questions if people have any.
My name is Badri Seshadri, member in India. The idea of interaction happening in the library is very interesting. Do you have enough space for book launches or author reader interaction in your libraries?
Right, so at 1,000 square feet library, there is only so much that we can do in terms of providing space. But we have experimented with getting writers. So typical libraries, by creating an additional space, can take about 15 to 20 audience in a very personalized interaction with people. So larger 100-member, 50-member book launch events would be difficult to manage in the libraries, but a 15-20-member interaction so in the past, we have had authors who are coming up with their first book, or people who are just getting into that space. They have expressed extreme happiness in being able to use our facility and engage a handful of people and talking to them about it. But we are not too sure whether existing libraries and infrastructure can handle a larger load and visibility of launching a book with a lot of action. It may be very
Based from your story, it's a futuristic question. So, does any of you member ask for an e-book through a library?
Right, so that's an interesting challenge about the business that we are in. Right? So we have two threads. So on one hand, people say libraries are dying. On another hand, people are saying paper books are dying. And we are in a business where we are handling both. So we have lots of physical libraries and we handle a lot of paper books. Are people asking for e-books? Our initial sense is that, like with all other experiences of ours, we think the experience will coexist. We are hoping that people will buy their digital books but continue to rent their paper books, share paper books with other readers and access it using platforms like ours. Is e-book a mandatory thing now for us? From a survivor perspective, we have not got a sense like that from any of our members as yet. But from a medium-term perspective, there are a lot of indications that that is a space that is pretty much there, and we're just betting on coexistence. People who continue to read paper books in some form and continue to access their books.
Well, I'm impressed by what you say that you started a library and that you got 1,000 people. I work in education, I'm also a designer, and I was not a library, but I don't have 1,000 people. So what is it that you've done to create ambience, logistics? You talked about logistics. What is it that you do to get people interested? Families, you talked about families signing up.
So our assessment when we step back and see what got us those members in the initial launch was that I think book lovers have a way of sniffing books. You don't need to market anything, they come to the book, it doesn't matter how the place looks, they figure out a way of getting to that place. Our experience was that we took a gamble of starting a library with about 10,000 to 12,000 books, while most libraries would typically start with about 1,000 to 2,000 books. And our assessment was that we would want a member to book ratio of about 1:10. We want people to read about 10 books a year, and I would want to build a collection that is able to carry them along for that long. And we made an assessment that we would get about 1,000 members over 1 year, and we said we want to start with a collection of about 10,000 books existing people. So the primary reason that we could have got people interested as an initial response was that when they stepped into a library, it would look as close to a bookstore in terms of number of books, in terms of freshness of books, in terms of collection range. So we almost tried to match a crossword or an Oxford or a landmark experience in a smaller scale, but put 10,000, 12,000 books as a collection. The first month experience often was people coming and picking up a book on the shelf and wanting to build a book at the front of the station, and we tell them that you can't build it, it's a library, you need to become a member. So if you mimic an experience that is existing, I guess that kind of piece of it. So it's a collection and the experience of
how did you source 10,000 books? Did you?
It is a capital intensive activity at some level. So that was a conscious call to say that if you want to experiment in this space, we want to experiment being a bookstore as close to as we want to be. With franchising, a part of capital is brought in by the franchise owners. So when somebody signs up and takes up a franchise, we get access to some capital to do that. But books as a space and that for someone to kind of invest and build a library continues to remain capital intensive.
Yeah, this is Sumit Gupta from Tiki. My question is, as you are growing, say you have 60 libraries, though there is a franchising model available, but the logistic requirement is increasing, and so is the back-end operations and all that, which requires investments. And so, are you able to sustain just on the membership, fee, or is there any other revenue model which you have evolved gradually, or is it you have some plans for that? Because I mean,
so
it's difficult to believe that
the good news and bad news of the model is that the good news is that technology and logistics is no longer as unaffordable as it seems from the outside. Thanks to a lot of e-commerce activity that's happening, and thanks to all this cloud-based SaaS offerings, we could buy an accounting package at maybe 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees per month, which would have cost us 20k, 25k sometime back. So you could start, if you do that smart analysis of wanting to pick extremely low-cost entry-level opportunities, both on technology space and logistics space, we think that that space is getting a lot more affordable. So that is the good news. The bad news, of course, is that will this scale like this forever, and will I have to build all that infrastructure and that capability myself? That's a call that we keep that in the back of our mind. We keep toying with that possibility. But right now, we think that the cost parameters for what is required to run a library using service providers from the external space seems workable as we speak today.
What was the initial investment? I mean, if you don't mind sharing.
It's a typical startup library because it was a one-time pet project of ours. A lot of I, my wife, and our family members were involved in setting it up. So we did our first library at about 50 lakhs, and we didn't think so. We done our numbers and we said over 5 years, if we get lots of members, it will be fine and it will get taken care of itself. But really, it was like buying a house and buying a car. It was a decision that was done just as a personal interest. We are not really expecting lots of returns from that. When you buy a car, you don't really worry too much about water. So there was a certain amount of affordability within our system that we could experiment with, and we picked it up and tried to do that. But from there to subsequent scale, the cost actually has only come down. Today, to set up a library, a franchise owner typically invests about 10 to 12 lakhs to set up a library in the neighborhood that he or she is interested in. But it is capital intensive, it's no running away from it.
Hi, I'm Uday. So you said that so your library is spread over 10 cities and you set them up on the franchising model and you also bring in some capital. And these libraries are also networked, so there's movement of books between them. So the collaboration part is good, but is there also tension if there is a library, one library pulling in books from others?
So the good thing about the way Just Books evolved was we got an opportunity, we got incubated as an interesting startup idea, as a startup enterprise at IIM Bangalore. They have an incubation center, it's called NSR Cell. And we got to spend about 18 months working with them on various dimensions of that model. And they being a management school, I think they liked the idea that Just Books is not an engineering startup and it lends itself for a lot of strategic model experiments. So as part of one of that, an important decision that we took during that time was that we as a backend company will buy all the books. And we will invest in buying books, we will not let the franchise owner write a check or buy books for that. So each branch that comes up, while one part of the capital comes from them and I don't need to do that, there is a certain capital requirement from our side as well in having to buy those books. But once we buy the books are no longer restrained by any siloed ownership issues that I won't read this book or I won't take that book. We take care of it.
Just have one last question.
Okay, as a sort of follow-up to what the person there asked, if it takes about 10 to 12 lakhs to set up a new library and you are looking at 1,000 members by the end of year one and assume that you sustain those 1,000 members, then how long does it take to break even for the franchisee?
So the way the model works is typically about 8 to 10 months. That's a shorter answer. But having said that, there are other parameters like the real estate cost that people normally incur. The good thing about any subscription-driven service is that people get used to coming to that place again and again. So you can take a slightly lower cost, more friendly options, and take a hit on lower rate of acquisition of members, but you can carry people along for a longer time at lower cost. So 8 to 10 months people tend to break even. But there are experiments that we have done wanting to be on a high street, extremely usable place, hoping to get members in large numbers at a very short period. And there are places like that where we struggle even with number of members with the associated cost. In a real world outlet, the only limiting factor in our experience is the real estate cost that is associated. So if you get that parameter right, then the break-even can be faster.
Have you ever had any place where you found real estate to be so expensive because other businesses were willing to pay that kind of rent that you can't afford a library?
So the most expensive library that we have today that we are, it's almost a daily discussion on our drawing board and monthly reviews go through very critical evaluation is the one in Powai in Mumbai. So that place is priced so high, largely because of other businesses that can afford that model. And we were extremely keen to just write it out there and see whether a library can work in a place like that, largely because of density that Mumbai brings to the table. So right now, the good news is that it's right there where we are still not shut it down, which means there is still hope. But the bad news is that it's going through critical analysis almost on a daily basis on this is an experiment that is working. So in terms of high cost, that would be offered. You had a question?
Yes, I'll
Go ahead. Last question.
Well, I'm from Bombay, and I was just going to ask you. But the thing is, I've entered one of the Just Book libraries in Thane, which is at the outskirts of Bombay. The sad thing is that I got married that very same year and moved 30 kilometers away, so now I can't be under her. But I was amazed at the space you have, at the collections you have, at the way you categorize books. You can move past shelves, 3 people can sit and browse in the same aisle. Okay, so all of that 10 out of 10. But I wanted to ask you as a business person, was a library always the first thing on your mind, or were you thinking about a bookshop first? And secondly, if logistics is not an issue, would you want to convert into a web-based library? And do you have a problem sourcing books from distributors? And since you're buying, say, 1 to 5 copies of certain books max, are you buying them, say, in the market, or do you have a distributor that you go to for this?
The last part first, I think when we buy for all our libraries together, our volume is only going up. So we are now able to engage directly with the publishers and work through the supply chain, and then get the benefit of being a reasonably sized buyer of books. That comes from the strength of, as the number of libraries increase, our volume is growing up and we are able to engage better. And because we started Just Books as a personal interest thing, the act of getting into a bookshop and buying and selling of books was never really there as a consideration. That's something that, already enough bookstores in the system, and so we very keen to do it as a library. From a space requirement perspective to web, we keep doing a lot of experiments in our libraries. The smallest of our libraries is about 300 square feet and it has 1,000 members. So it just has only one shelf in the form of a letter S. That's the only shelf that's there in the library, and then there are just glasses around, and it's like an ATM, a slightly bigger form of an ATM. And we're quite happy with the way people are responding to that. So that's the other end of the experiment. So some of these experiments, like the Thane one that you're talking about, are on if we have more space for people to move around and lesser number of books, does it change the experience? And if we tell people that any more books that you would want to, which you're not finding in this, you'll be able to get it from our other branches, or you'll be able to get it delivered to your place. So Thane, for example, is still doing very well for us. It's one of our successful branches in working well. So both experiments kind of seem to work well. Should we discontinue all these offline stores and go pure web model and start delivering books home? So I come from a background of writing software for banks and financial institutions. So we keep doing a lot of internal mapping to the banking industry. We have bank branches all over the place. Most people don't visit a branch ever. So you open an account and they're quite comfortable accessing an ATM or doing an internet banking and things like that. But when we did an experiment a few years back with virtual banking, it said the branch will not have any branch at all, and it is a bank. That you open an account and get started and deposit your money, you can withdraw, just didn't take off. There is a certain sense of stability that an offline neighborhood presence seems to bring to the system. And it seems to enable certain extremely local marketing opportunities. A 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers engagement seems to get a little deeper. That connect doesn't seem to come through when we are present only on the web. So we will be keen to mimic the banking industry structure of creating lots of libraries to sustain an engagement and use it as a marketing effort to carry people along. But make it more convenient for people to access us over the web and get books delivered home. That we think will be a win-win for both parties.